Looking for amazing finds and incredible deals? Visit Erie City Mission Thrift today. From stylish clothes and shoes to quality furniture and home goods, you'll discover something new each time while changing lives right here in Erie. It's shopping that feels good and does good. Come see us in Erie and Girard. Erie City Mission Thrift. Thrift with a purpose.
All year round, Frontier Home Products and Design has what you need to make your home comfortable and beautiful. Relax on a new timber tech deck designed by Frontier's experts. A new fireplace from Frontier Home Products Fireplace Gallery adds warmth and serenity to any home. Beauty and versatility at Frontier Home Products and Design Center, 4213 Peachtree, 5th next to the Bayfront Highway.
Frontier Home Products and Design Center. Discover a new frontier.
PA contractor number PA 039007.
Welcome to TalkErie.com's Joel Natale Show, Erie, Pennsylvania's daily podcast. Every day, we tackle the biggest issues that the Erie, PA region faces. Stay informed and involved as we advance the narrative of Erie. Now, here's Joel Natale.
John, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here.
Absolutely. Thanks, Joel, for having me again. Good to see you.
I want to start at the very beginning here because we're celebrating 25 years of this very important work that the Highmark Caring place does. And so let's start with kind of the history, the initial concept, some of the key players at the beginning there.
Sure. So originally the Caring Place came from Pittsburgh. The first location was opened in 1997. And
was it part of Allegheny Health Network, Allegheny General?
Part of Highmark, part of the Caring Foundation.
Okay.
What ended up happening was one of the people who was involved with that program had a son who died, and he found that he could access supports for he and his wife, but there weren't really supports for their other son who is now grieving the loss of his brother. And so they decided to have a summer camp to try to support those kids. And they discovered very quickly that this affects so many kids. And so that's what really was the impetus for the first Caring Place location being open in 97. It's right in the heart of downtown Pittsburgh, there right by where the main Highmark building is downtown. And then a few years later, they were able to duplicate that model here in Erie. So we opened May 1st of 2001 with that same mission and goal, being able to help support kids and families who were grieving a death.
So really kind of is earlier than with the network affiliation for St. Vincent and AHN, isn't it? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And it's directed toward children, right? Children that are grieving.
So adults are able to be in the program, but they have to be connected to a child in some way. Either it is their child, they're a grandparent, they're an aunt and uncle, they're an older sibling. Adults aren't able to just come on their own. So it is child-centered, but it is family-focused as well to be able to work with the entire family.
And is it primarily for those that have suffered a loss of a child or any kind of loss?
Any kind of a loss that's specific to death. We know that lots of losses can have very similar feelings as it relates to grief. Our program is specific to death, and I will also say to death of a person. When I talk with students in schools, that's primarily what I do. I'm going out and doing classroom presentations. A lot of students will ask me about, well, I had a dog that died, I had a cat that died.
Yeah.
And a lot of those feelings are very much the same, but our program is specific to the death of a person.
And I'm interested in maybe sharing some of the stories, like when you go out, and again, is that one of your primary things of public education is to
Yes.
just talk to students, huh?
Yeah, one of the things that I do, I go in and do classroom presentations really just to help kids better understand grief, help them understand that so many of them have had that experience, even if they didn't realize that already. For older kids, I tend to play a game where they raise their hand if they like Chinese food or they ever had a bad hair day. And I always end with someone in my life has died. And it's overwhelming. It's 90%, sometimes 100% of those kids at the middle and high school level that raise their hand. At the elementary school level, I don't have to play the game because I can't make it 2 minutes in before a little kid raises their hand and says, "My grandpa died last year." And I usually say to them, I'm so sad to hear that. Friends, if you're feeling brave, would you raise your hand if something like that has happened to you too? And it's a lot of their little hands too, maybe not as many as the middle or high school, but it's something that we know affects so many of these kids.
John, where would they get information and learning about grief? Otherwise, I'm kind of racking my brain of saying we didn't have a unit even in health class about grief, did we?
I think it's one of those things that grief is just a really hard subject to talk about, and so a lot of people tend to avoid it.
But think about, you're going through 12 years of school,
I know.
K-12.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly I'm kind of dumbfounded, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that probably gets touched on a little bit. Okay. Again, probably for older students, maybe in a high school health class. But by and large, grief is not something that is often talked about.
All right, so help us.
Sure.
Help us with grief here. What is the biggest misunderstanding, would you say, for the average person to not understand about grief?
Yeah, I think it was funny you asked, because I was just thinking about that. If I did learn something in high school health, I learned about the stages, right? The 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. That's one of those things that sort of is widely out there. Except the stages had to do with coming to terms with the fact if you had a terminal illness and you were not going to survive. They were never intended to have anything to do with you and I grieving the death of someone else. But those sort of went mainstream, when Elizabeth Kubler-Ross created that.
It was about your own situation.
Your own mortality. If you had a terminal illness, that was, Dr. Ross worked with patients who were terminally ill. And then what ended up happening was people will call us and they're like, I'm currently angry. Get me to acceptance, right? Get me to the finish line so I'm done with this. And we know that grief becomes a lifelong process. We grieve because we love. So there's no endpoint. It doesn't mean it always looks the same or sounds the same or feels the same. It is different throughout your life, but that grief will always be a part of you.
And that's where it really kind of comes in with, it is, from birth or from kind of understanding, the age of understanding to elderly people and understanding the sense of loss and dealing with that grief, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why what we do at the Caring Place, it's not counseling, it's not therapy. It's really designed as peer support. It's just connecting kids, teens, and adults with other kids, teens, and adults. So they have a space where they can talk about their person. They can talk about how they feel. They can talk about their memories, because we know a lot of times outside of that space, that can be a really uncomfortable topic, or one that they don't necessarily feel like they're able to share, with a friend, with a teacher, even sometimes with people in their family, because we know that it can be a difficult subject. They may not want to make someone else in their family sad, and so they tend not to talk about it.
Wow. All right. So the whole concept of the Caring Place comes from this obvious missing need that was in Pittsburgh now 25 years ago, and you're saying Erie was the next one to open up.
Yeah.
How many Caring Places are there now? So
currently there are 4 of them. All of them are here in Pennsylvania. Pittsburgh opened in 97. We opened in 2001. There's an office that's in the Camp Hill area that opened in 2003. And because Pittsburgh is such a large area, they actually opened up an office in the Warrendale-Cranberry area in 2008.
So you have one downtown and one in the North Hills.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Gotcha. What about the model, though? Is the model being pervasive nationwide? I mean, do you talk to other colleagues that might be in other networks or something like that?
Yeah, I think there are a number of different grief centers all across the country, around the world, for that matter. Everybody has their own way of doing that, but a lot of it is very similar in terms of the goal of bringing people together, being able to share their story, validating those feelings. All of those kinds of things are fairly universal. The Caring Place was one of the very first in the country to be able to do this kind of programming. And so foundationally, a lot of what we do led to what a lot of the other places were doing, at least initially, as they were forming their programs.
How important is it to kind of have the bricks and mortar Caring Place vis-a-vis, you going out and doing public outreach, or maybe having a group, at another facility or something like that. Talk about how that all works.
Yeah, I think having that physical space is so important. It gives the families an opportunity to gather. If a family signs up to do one of our groups, they sign up. It's one night a week for 10 weeks that they're coming to that space. It's roughly about 2 hours. They come in and have dinner. They get a chance to play some games or do some fun activities, either as a family or with other people that are there. And then they each member of the family has their own group room that they would go to. The kids are divided by age. We don't divide the adults by age. They would get grumpy about that. Right. So, but being able to have their own space to be able to then share about their person and all those things. It's nice to just have that physical community, right? Just being able to be there. The other thing that we do with those intro groups is each family has an opportunity to make a quilt square in honor of their person or people who died. Wow. And then each of those squares is sewn together to represent a group. So if you were in a group with 11 other families, all of your quilt squares would be sewn together, and then those quilts are hung at the Caring Place. And so you're able to come and see them hanging, or if they're ones from several years ago, it may not be hanging, but we have all of them. And we have families that come back and they ask to see them.
How many quilts do you have, do you think?
The last number, I believe it's right around 90 quilts that we have. Not all of them are hanging, but I believe it's right around 90.
Unreal. Yeah. Again, what do you feel like is either the symbolism or kind of the cathartic part of making that quilt square, do you think?
Yeah, I think capturing that person's life, right? What were the things? And so much of that process, sometimes it can be very difficult, but sometimes just being able to share those stories and memories as the family is sitting together and doing that, having pictures. And then we always have tons of fabric so they can cut out slices of pizza or Scrabble tiles or whatever their person's things were to be able to add to that square. And I also think just that representation of all of those squares being together, like we went on this journey together at the Caring Place, and we're forever connected now because we were here together.
That makes a lot of sense to me. All right, we're going to take our first break here. John Williams is here from the Highmark Caring Place. They are celebrating 25 years of this amazing work of helping kids, families, and folks cope with grief. I heard that Mr. Rogers, Fred Rogers, was a part of the origination of this?
Yeah, absolutely. He was one of the first people that was part of that initial group. He was the honorary chairman of the foundation up until his death in 2003.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was here in 2001 when they opened the space here in Erie. A story was shared with me that when he was going around, they were shooting some B-roll footage, and the cameraman started to get emotional. And in true Fred Rogers fashion, he stopped what they were doing and he sat down with that gentleman and they talked. And the person shared with me, like, you didn't rush Fred, right? If Fred was taking some time, he took some time. And so,
yes.
I love that, his legacy is just, in some ways, I feel like he's more popular now than he was when I was a kid.
Totally.
And so
I don't think of course, as kids, we didn't know.
Sure.
But as you look back and you look back at the legacy, and again, things like the Caring Place where, he always wanted you to feel special.
Yeah.
And if the specialness of you meant that you are enduring grief, obviously his heart was open to all that.
Yeah, there's a quote from Fred Rogers in all 4 of the Caring Place locations that talks about, anything mentionable is manageable, right? And just giving that space again to talk about grief and loss, even though it's hard.
Let's talk about your celebration here. According to the press release, there's banners up. You have lawn signs. Tell us a little bit about how you're noting it here in Erie.
Yeah, the plan really was from the outset to be able to do things throughout the year. We did an event with some of our families at the Caring Place in January, and we watched Monsters, Inc. because, believe it or not, Monsters, Inc. came out in 2001. And
wow.
So just doing a lot of different things that kind of, make connections to that. There are yard signs that we have available. I know many of our volunteers and families have gotten them. I plan on sharing them with my schools in the fall when we kick off the new school year. So lots of different things related to that. The banners being downtown here. One of the things that I'm really excited about is that in addition to it being the 25th anniversary of the Caring Place, 25 years ago in September, was the anniversary of 9/11.
Sure was.
And so one of the things that we're doing is we're partnering with the Erie Playhouse and sponsoring Come From Away, which premieres on September 11th. That's a show that's about what happened that day and the all of the planes that were diverted to Newfoundland. It's a musical, but it's really heartfelt and just talking about all those different real life experiences of all those people that were on the planes, people that were in that small town. And it's such a perfect connection for us. We've worked with the Playhouse for a very long time. They're absolutely wonderful. And so to have an opportunity to do this on our 25th anniversary and connect with them in this way is just really special.
Our producer, Shaney, is a member of the cast for Come From Away.
I did not know that. That's amazing.
So, yeah, we're very thrilled about that show. Again, another example of people being kind to each other.
Absolutely.
Those people from Gander, Newfoundland, right? My goodness. I love this quote from your executive director. For 25 years, the Highmark Caring Place has been a beacon of hope and healing for tens of thousands of children and families navigating the profound journey of grief. This milestone anniversary is a testament to our commitment to providing a safe, understanding, and supportive environment where grieving kids can find help, share memories, and ultimately begin to heal. That really resonates with you, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just that ability, we were talking about this a little bit at the beginning about just, can it be difficult to do this? And the easy answer is, of course it is. But there are days and moments where I feel like if I can just make a little bit of a difference, right? If I can bring a little bit of light, a little bit of hope to that child or to that family, what a gift that is to be able to share with them and to allow them, to take just even a small step on that path to healing. And so I think so much of that is why we do what we do.
It just feels that, like we were saying earlier, that this is one of the few parts of our culture, of our community, that is saying, hey, we've got to deal with this very, very common situation of loss.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we know it's so pervasive, and so many children and adults have faced that experience. One of the things that is so integral for us to even be able to do what we do is through the support of our volunteers.
Okay.
We have a staff of only 7 people. We couldn't possibly do all of the programming that we do without the help of many people here in our community. And it really is just people that know about us and say, I want to help. I want to do something with that. We're always looking for volunteers. We're actually going to start one of our volunteer training sessions here in a couple weeks. So if anybody's interested, please feel free to reach out to the Caring Place. That we literally, again, we couldn't do what we do without the help of all of those people who just come in with a heart of saying, I just want to do some good. What can I do to try to help support these kids and families?
Again, 25 years here. How have you sustained yourself financially? Do you participate in Erie Gives and that kind of thing?
So we're very fortunate to be connected to Highmark. Okay. We do have some fundraising things that we do throughout the year, but by and large, our programming at all 4 sites is funded by Highmark.
Wow.
And it doesn't have anything to do with insurance. Sometimes people think because it's the Highmark Caring Place, so I have to have that insurance, or if I don't, it'll cost money. It doesn't have anything to do with that. Highmark just believes really strongly in helping and supporting these grieving families, and so they largely fund all of our programming. So we're very fortunate in that way.
That is amazing. We just got a couple minutes left before the bottom of the hour. As you note this 25th anniversary, what do you think has changed? What do you think has stayed the same, even in your tenure here?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the one thing that we talk about so much for kids, for families, even for us, is just schedule. I mean, everybody is just so busy all the time.
Wow.
And so being able to find that night that you can come, 10 times, sometimes for people who have work schedules or kids that are involved in sports or activities, sometimes that's difficult to be able to give that up. And I'm always really thankful when I hear from a school where they say, my coach knows that I'm going to miss if they also know how important this is and they're okay with it, versus like, I'm now not going to get to play on Sunday because I miss practice, right? And so those kinds of things, but I think it's hard. Like everybody is busy. And so being able to connect and find those ways to have them, be a part of our program and doing those things, for sure, I think is challenging.
That makes a lot of sense to me, that it would be, people are kind of over scheduled or maybe it is a coping mechanism that they're filling their schedule to really not deal with this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
What do
it
you
could be.
think?
I think part of it is, in order to get to us, families have to initiate that. There's no referral. There's no like,
It's
nobody
not like
can
you're
send somebody.
doing outreach. Hey,
Yeah.
you need us, we're here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we do things like just to let the community know about our programming.
Right.
But if a family specifically is interested, they have to initiate. They would call and do an intake with us. They get to come to an open house to kind of check the place out, get a feel for it, and then make a decision as a family if they want to sign up for a group or not. The one thing I will say in terms of what you asked about what hasn't necessarily changed is I think the families by and large are the same. The families still are grieving, and they've had this major loss that has impacted their life in a profound way, and they're looking for help and support. And for us being able to do that, even though that may look different or the timing of it may be different, but being able to help and support them, I think is that universal piece that sustains that. The other piece that I think continues to happen is by and large, families find out about us because they know another family who went through our program. They know one of our volunteers, somebody at their business or their school, told them, hey, you've got to call the Caring Place. And that word of mouth has been such a huge blessing for us to be able to share that with so many families, because more often than not, that's what somebody tells us when they call, is that they had at least one, sometimes five, right, that have said,
Wow.
You've got to call the Caring Place.
From baggage claim to pajamas in 10 minutes. Erie International Airport. Fly with ERI.com.
Fly Erie International Airport to Charlotte on American Airlines, your nonstop gateway to the world. Also, we have Breeze Airways flying nonstop to Orlando and Tampa, Florida. Great low-cost carrier providing excellent service to the regional community. Fly Erie International for your travel needs.
Fly with ERI.com.
Get paid to drive. Start a new career behind the wheel at the EMTA. If you are looking for a high-paying and rewarding career with full benefits and paid training, stop by or apply online today with the EMTA. Plus, EMTA riders can now enjoy free Wi-Fi on new, clean, and environmentally friendly buses to travel all over Erie County. Visit ridethee.com for more information.
Get on board EMTA. Get on board EMTA. Get
At Quickfill, what matters most is that our customers, our communities, and our heroes are taken care of. We start by providing American-made gasoline, which means you can buy local, keeping America and your communities strong. We also support vital charities every year and hold Operation Give Thanks each November to help provide a better future for our veterans and their families. We're proud to support the communities we live and work in, and we're doing our best every day to make our towns a better place. Quickfill, driving America.
You just recently honored your volunteers last week at the Ambassador. Talk about that anniversary event.
Yeah, we just had not just celebrating our anniversary as an organization, but there were 4 volunteers there who have been there since the beginning. And so to have all 4 of them there together and be able to honor and recognize them, to hear stories from families as well, it just was a really special night for sure.
I wanted to ask you because again, you mentioned that there's no cost to this program,
Yeah.
and so that should be a wide open door for folks to access your services, to be a part of a group, and so on. But you're saying that there's still issues that sometimes you have to deal with, right?
I think the struggle is just families being able to get to us, and we do everything we can to try to support that. If that ends up being a barrier to try to help them,
Just transportation-wise.
Sure. Yeah. Transportation. We have families that come from, right here in the city. We have families that come from the county, families from Crawford and Warren County. We've had families from New York and Ohio that have come. And so there is that piece of it as well, to be able to just logistically get to us, as well as the scheduling piece that we talked about before. Sometimes a lot of that is just hard for the family to be able to get to our door, even though, like you said, it's free for them to come in. But sometimes there's definitely barriers, and we do everything we can to try to support that.
It makes me wonder, too, is language ever an issue? Again, we have a lot of new Americans in the Erie area, and they're suffering losses, too, I would imagine.
Yeah, we've had that in a couple different situations where there's been been an interpreter
Oh,
that has
wow.
come in. We also have a couple of our volunteers who speak Spanish, and so we've been able to utilize them as well in some of the group rooms to be able to help and support in that way.
We're talking about grief and, how our society doesn't. I mean, you guys are kind of the pillars of helping people deal with grief. But if you talk to, I have friends that are funeral directors, and there's a lot of, we're just in a kind of a different time with our culture about, dealing with grief. There sometimes you'll read an obituary. There's no viewing. There's no memorial service, and you're like, well, those are all rituals that help us process. You mentioned the 5 stages of grief. That can't be healthy to just stuff it and just not deal with your loss.
I think families have their own ways of processing and dealing. I think a lot of the issue, just like we were talking about, a lot of the issues when it comes to funerals related to cost. And so they may be doing their own things to sort of honor and recognize, that person, that loss for sure. But again, that idea of the stages of there is no finish line for this. This is, we tend to talk about it more like a spiral, that there's things that just go around and around that come back into our lives again and again that cause us to think about that person, right? That song on the radio, the smell when you walk into the restaurant, the date on the calendar. There's lots of those things that will remind you that isn't just a one-time thing. Those are things that will remind you throughout.
And again, with your expertise, what are some coping mechanisms that will help people navigate that, you think?
I think for a lot of people, having space to just share and talk about what's happened with them, how they're feeling, what's going on. One of the things that we talk a lot with our volunteers about is that your job is not to fix this, because you're not going to fix it. And so being there to just listen. There's a fantastic kids book called The Rabbit Listened, which is all about this boy who has his blocks get knocked over. All these animals tell him all these things that he should do. He doesn't want to do any of them. Then this rabbit shows up and just sits next to the boy. And the boy starts talking about all the things he could do, and eventually decides he's going to build it even bigger and better than it was before. And the idea was that the rabbit just was there and just listened to the boy. It didn't say anything, didn't try to fix it, didn't tell the boy what to do. And so sometimes it really is just about being there and being supportive. A lot of the work that we do is associated with the work that Alan Wofelt did, who was a pioneer in the field of grief. He called that companioning, really just walking alongside someone as they're grieving.
That's a great term, companioning.
Yeah.
Just to be able to be there.
Yeah.
And that's something that, as a friend, as a loved one, as you're experiencing someone with grief in your family or in your circle of influence, you can be that companion.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons that we do Children's Grief Awareness Day. That's actually something that started here in Erie 18 years ago now.
Wow.
It was started at Ridgefield Elementary by a group of kids that were working with the Caring Plays. And those kids were like, there's all of these days and all of these colors for all of this stuff, and there's nothing for us. And they didn't think that was okay. And so they started the first Children's Grief Awareness Day. And now 18 years later, it's this International Day of Remembrance and Recognition around the world to make sure that kids recognize that they are not alone in their grief. It's always the Thursday before Thanksgiving. This year it's on Thursday, November 19th. Lots of schools and businesses do things with butterflies, or they encourage everyone to wear blue. People can write a message of hope or support for a friend. They can write the name of their person or people who died. Just being able to give that space to recognize that it's okay. I remember we had a little boy who came to the Caring Place. He was so excited, and he was like, guys, guess what? Everybody was wearing blue for me on Thursday, right? They recognized, they saw that was happening and how important and impactful that was for them.
So you're saying that started here in the Mill Creek schools?
Yeah.
Wow.
Started here 18 years ago.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I wanted to ask you, John, about technology. Again, lots of benefits to technology, but there's a lot of TikTok influencers that could be a bad scene when we're dealing with grief.
Yeah.
What do you think about all that?
I think, like everything, there is positive and negative, right? One of the things that we have found is that there are so many different resources online. We have a number of things that we've put on our YouTube channel over the years, and we're active on social media as well. But there also are a ton of other organizations, and there are people who do podcasts, or they post things about that. I think, like with anything, it just is about having that support and sometimes that supervision as far as, what are those things that are being shared and said. But I do also think that where we are now, so much of what is consumed is that way. And so being able to find ways to be able to do that and address it. We now have a virtual young adult group, which is 18 to 35-ish, somewhere in there. You don't have to have children to be a part of that. You also don't have to be within Pennsylvania to do that. We've had people from all over the country that have participated in that we've offered. We've offered those groups several times throughout the year. But for them to have that ability to connect for an hour and a half once a week, but to do it virtually has been very helpful for them to have that space, because there wasn't another way that they were able to do that. So we also try to use technology in that way to be able to best connect and reach people.
What are they talking about on a Zoom call like that? I mean, especially in that age group. I mean, you're going to get some pretty serious and deep conversations, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, in some regard, it's very similar to what our adults talk about, right? They talk about, their families, their jobs, their relationships, those sorts of things. One of the things that we know with young adults is that sometimes that connection to supports can be more limited, especially if they have moved either for school or for work. And so that sometimes impacts them, or as they're building, those new friendships, they're building relationships. And so there's that part of it too, but now they also don't have that person or those people there who were so important in their lives to help and support along the way.
Yeah, one of the knocks that the Gen Zers get is that they don't know how to talk because they're always texting or using the phone or whatever. I would imagine it's challenging to be in a support group.
Yeah, so one of the things that we do at the site is we have a rule about not being on your phone when you're there, which for the most part is not an issue because we have terrible reception at the Caring Place. And so your phone is basically not going to work anyway when you're there.
It's a brick.
It's kind of a brick. It's not really going to be helpful. But we talk about, just really being present for this time, that hour that you're in the group room, just being present with the people that are around you so that, and I always talk with them about, I want to hear what you have to say. I also want you to hear what other people have to say and the value and importance that can be too.
All of us have experienced grief, and it makes me wonder, if there's helpful things that, especially with maybe a parent that is in a terminal illness or something, that they could help prepare a young one. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think that's always such a hard situation, right? And part of that usually depends on the age of the child or children versus how much information you want to share. I know we have families that have gone to great lengths to prepare, all of the funeral arrangements were made, all of the pictures to be used, like all of those sorts of things.
Kind of the planning is part of the healing, or at least a protective factor, maybe.
To not have them have that added stress and worry of some of those things.
Sure.
But I do think with kids in any situation, I think whenever you're able to be honest with them, to share information, to do it at an age-appropriate level. But sometimes that unknown is far worse than just sharing with them what's happening. And so being able to do that, in a healthy and a loving way, I think can be really beneficial for kids.
Wow. Again, to navigate grief as a child is just you're doing amazing work there, and it just is one of those things that again, we've all experienced it, or we have closeness to it, but it's amazing that your staff and your volunteers are stepping up and saying, okay, we're here to enter into these conversations in this relationship. It's pretty remarkable amount of courage, I think.
I appreciate that. And it is scary sometimes, right? And I think some of that comes from the pressure of needing the right thing to say. And again, we try to alleviate a lot of that and just about being there. I was thinking earlier about the very first night I was ever at the Caring Place in our preschool room where we have all of our little kids. I remember I walked in the door, there were two little kids playing dress up together. There's a little boy and a little girl. Little boy was dressed as a soldier and the girl as a princess. And I asked the two of them, I said, "What are you guys doing?" And the little girl looked at me and said, he's here to protect me, to make sure nothing bad ever happens again. And I always think about those two kids because just in that moment, I got such a great glimpse into how they were feeling, right? Because that little girl was saying, I just want to be safe. And that little boy was saying, nothing bad is going to happen as long as I'm standing at my post, right? Kids are going to show you how they're feeling. They may not tell you in words, but they're going to show you in their play. They're going to show you sometimes in their behavior and things that are going on. And just being open to that, being open to those conversations and sharing that experience with them, even though sometimes it's really difficult, it just is such a powerful thing.
And it really goes back to some of the conversations I've had about mental health and you know, behavioral health, where the idea of the adult, the parent, if you will, putting your own mask on before you put the child's mask on.
Right.
You really, if to be able to help this child navigate this very, very challenging season of their lives, you have to step up almost and say, okay, what do I need? What kind of supports do I need so I can help my kids?
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
Wow.
Joel, think about it this way. Think about how often somebody asks you how you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't really care. And I know that sounds so mean to say, right? But it happens all the time, right? People ask us, but the importance is you need to have somebody, at least one person, right, who's going to ask you that is waiting for an answer, right? For you to share, you know what, I'm having a hard time today, or you know what, this one story, because it connected close to my story, like I need to talk to somebody about. And we do a really good job, both as staff and with our volunteers. We process every night after we do a group. We have what's called post group, where we sit down with the volunteers. How did tonight go? What's sitting with, you know, anybody at this point? Being able to have that space. It's also part of what we do with volunteer training, because that time is also designed to really talk with them about their stories and their losses and giving them an understanding of this is what we do. And sometimes it can be difficult because of our own stories and situations that have happened, and being able to try to work through that a little bit. But just, again, creating that space, being able to share with one another is really important.
All right, Highmark Caring Place, 25th anniversary. If folks want to kind of plug in and be a part of what you're able, what you have to offer, can you share about, what are some of those trajectories? What can they get help from,
So if they're interested, they can always just call us directly. 814-871-6868 is the direct number to our Erie office. You can check out our website. It's just highmarkcaringplace.com. There are a ton of resources. We have brochures. There are past webinars that people have done. There's just a ton of things there. We also have a YouTube channel that has many videos, including there's a video of Mr. Rogers being here as well. So being able to access those, there's lots of activities for kids that are in those YouTube videos. There's books and lots of things like that. So if anybody's interested, feel free to do that, as well as checking out our socials. That's the best way to check out any of the things that will be upcoming with the 25th anniversary.
All right. And again, November 19th, Children's Grief Awareness Day. And what can people expect for that day? What's a way that they can participate in that?
Yeah, I mean, wearing blue is the best thing you can do. Just being able to do that to show that you're recognizing that there are grieving children around the world. There are lots of schools and businesses that will be doing things. Pop Luck always does a fantastic blue popcorn for us as part of Children's Grief Awareness Day. There's many other businesses that have been involved in special ways. The Otters have done a game the last couple years as part of Children's Grief Awareness Day. So there's lots of things like that within the community that you'll see some things about that, as well as just being able to have that space. If you have kids, there's a really good chance their school will do something in relation to that, where they can write the name of someone on a butterfly, or a message of support for a friend, or again, just wearing blue to school that day can make a huge difference.
Wonderful. John Williams, again, from the Highmark Caring Place. Congratulations on this 25th anniversary, and thank you and your staff and your volunteers for everything that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me today.
You've been listening to The Joel Natale Show, Erie, Pennsylvania's daily podcast from TalkErie.com. Subscribe to our show on your favorite podcatcher and get involved by emailing joel@TalkErie.com.